Hi everyone and welcome back. In today's video, we wanted to get a little more specific with something we've talked about. So in relation to that, we have mentioned light and dark and as to practices and practitioners of different practices. So going a little more specific, Sterling, can you talk about the difference between angels and demons?
Sure. First of all, let's talk about angels, okay? Because there's two types of angels. You have your graceful angels, you have your fallen angels. Okay, fallen angels would be better defined by saying devils than demons. Okay, there are many different, and the correlation between demon and devil is, they're married now. Everybody talks about demonics when they talk about fallen angels. Okay, and there are differences. Okay. Within Judeo-Christianity, there are differences. There is one story that says that when God was creating the angels, he gave them a choice. And one was you give up your will and you become this graceful angel. If you decide not to, you become what we call a demon. You're cut off. You're not evil. You're just cut off. You're something elemental, completely elemental. It would be like kind of like what the Titans were for the Greeks.
Okay.
In a lot of regards, complete elemental beings. Okay.
In that, following that arc, then those that refuse to maintain their position as graceful, are they still immortal?
Yes, they would still be yes and no. They would be immortal. They wouldn't have the power. Okay. They wouldn't be able to feed on manna as an angel does. They would not have the connection to grace that the angels do. But they wouldn't have the lust for grace either.
Oh, okay.
That devils do. Okay. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But, and again, they're not inherently evil. They just made a choice. And they were given the ability to make that choice. So it wasn't like they rebelled. They just said, "No, we'll do this." Okay, so that's one definition of what a demon is. Okay, in Judeo-Christianity, though, the way that they look at the difference between devils and demons is not that. Okay, demons were essentially offspring of fallen angels, of the devils.
Okay, yes, okay. The disembodied spirits of the Nephilim.
Well, the Nephilim were the offspring of humans and angels.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Demons are the offspring of fallen angels and fallen angels. Okay.
Okay.
So that's the biggest difference. Okay. The Nephilim were part mortal.
Yes.
Okay. Demons are not. They have no part mortal in them at all. They were created essentially in hell. Think of it that way. Or, and they're mortal enough to where they can be killed. Where angels are immortal. Okay? You can separate an angel's energies to the four corners of the earth, but they will come back until the end. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, and that's even corroborated in a lot of the stories that you have about angels, in the books of Enoch and all these others, the books of Moses and some of the apocryphal books, because there are angels that essentially God destroys because of one thing or the other, but then later on are back. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the difference. They are immortal, okay, and eternal. Now, the one thing that they don't have, and we're talking about graceful angels, is choice. Okay? Okay, and forget about the first story we talked about. If you think about the way that they're looked on now in Judeo-Christianity, okay, they didn't have free will. They were given a choice. Okay? They were created for specific purposes. Okay? And then some rebelled. Okay? Made a choice that they didn't have. Rebelled. Okay? And then they fell. Now where did they fall? Some of the stories will tell you that, when Satan fell, the dragon's tail pulled down a third of heaven with it. So a third of the angels, okay, under the earth and then into the earth and things of that nature. Now, okay, what we know though is they fell from grace. Okay, so they were cut off from God's grace. Okay, they have no access to it any longer.
Yes.
Okay, so they still have quite a bit of power, most of their power. Okay, but when they were cut off from grace, they became almost like an addicts for it. Okay, that's what made mortals so important to the fallen and to the devils, because we have the will to give our grace to them, and then they can feed off us, which is essentially what they do. They don't feed off our fear, they don't feed off our negative stuff, they feed off our grace and they replace it with all of the negativity, things that they're made up of at this point, okay, while they're getting their fix, their grace fix, okay, and then they use that. They branch out energetically through energetic connections from us to the people around us, to the people we care about, to the people that we know, and they feed off them. So it becomes, you want to look at it like a parasite and a host.
It's a very parasitic cycle, yes.
Yes. You have a host. Okay. The host, just like fleas on a rat, not really affected. Okay. But when they get around others and they jump, then they're affected. The host is fine. Once everyone around the host has been depleted essentially, or completely cut off, then they usually kill them and move on to another host and branch out from there.
Wow.
Okay? Not to mention that your major, like your dukes in hell and your princes and the big, massive fallen will work through demonic minions, and there could be hundreds of them. Okay? That they go through first. Then those things go off and feed, and they feed it back to that central point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So then, when you go into like a haunting situation, or where somebody is possessed and things of that nature that happen, and the blessings happen and they don't work, and exorcisms will happen and they don't work, and clearings and cleanses and banishments and whatever anybody's doing, they don't work. It's generally because when they've gone in, that did work. They just banished minions. But the big one never got banished.
But the main player's still there. Okay.
And just sent more minions in. So yeah, you banish these out, but I got more. Boom. I got thousands of these things. And they come in, and it doesn't work. And of course, they use it as a way to say, we're more powerful than the energy that you've used. You know, we're more powerful than Jesus and all this kind of stuff. That's usually why they do that. That's also why, again, I think that was one of the important parts of one of the stories in the Bible that people miss. When he said, what's your name? And he said, Legion, because it was a bunch of minions. And they were a legion. Okay? But what wasn't there was the one in charge. It was not there. It was in hell or wherever that, or in somewhere else. Okay? And that's another thing. Third of heaven fell, and not all of the devils are in hell. We know this because of, let's say, the hierarchies. There are angelic personal hierarchies that we have. And one of those is called the powers. And their job is to protect the heavenly pathways.
Yes, yeah.
From, if all the devils and demons are in hell, what are you protecting them from?
Right.
Doesn't make any sense. There's also an order that's, its chief is Sandalphon, and it's called the Psychopompi. And their job is to, when a person dies, they're the ones that take their spirit and make sure that it gets to where it's supposed to get without any interference. But again, interference from who? If all of them are in hell. So, there is speculation that not all of the devils are in hell. Not to mention, again, we have free will. Okay, and dark practitioners can set them free. Because they have free will to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
That, okay. So that leads to the next question is how would they be able to get free? Like portals, how that works. And
Well, some of them never went. That's the
Right.
thing.
Yes.
I mean, essentially, hell is
Clearly, yes.
for us
Yeah.
to be punished. Okay? And Satan and some of the massive big powers. Okay? But, again, when they fell, they didn't fall into hell, they fell out of grace. They fell from grace. They're still around. Okay? And there's stories about that all throughout Judeo-Christianity.
Yes. Yeah.
You know.
Oh yes, it's
they work everywhere.
In the New Testament, the Apostle Paul writes about the powers that we war against in the supernatural realm.
Yes, yes. They're still out there. They're still on the heavenly pathways. Okay? They still have access. They can't access grace because they were completely cut off. So essentially, because we talk, and I brought up the word manna before. Manna is essentially is the angel of foods. It's their sustenance. It's what they eat. Okay. Now, the devils, even if they got a hold of manna, it wouldn't do anything for them because they have no grace. It doesn't do anything for them. It doesn't magnify them like it would an angel. Okay. So eating manna doesn't get it. That's why, again, they need us. Okay. Because they can get it from us. So we're like their drug, and they're like the addicts that need it. Okay. And that's what they take from us when they get us. Okay, or get a hold of us. They tempt us.
Okay.
Well, I can give you money, all you have to give me is your grace. Okay.
Right.
so
Again, with our free will. Yes, we can say.
We can say, yeah,
yes,
sure. You can
yes
take
or
it.
no. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, and the graceful angels are powerless because it's something that was given to us.
Right.
That is beyond them. Okay, it must be frustrating for them.
It's kind
Except for a being that has no, doesn't know. So it's like, why don't you just do this?
It's got to be.
It's got to
be frustrating.
Yes.
But it also.
But again, that was a reason.
It's kind of intriguing.
In Christianity for Christ. Was to bridge that.
Yes, absolutely. But that would seem to indicate that we also have a measure of grace within us.
Yeah, we have grace within us. We are graceful. Yes, we do. Okay? Because we have a connection to the all. Okay? We have two. We have a finite connection and we have an infinite connection. The infinite connection is our soul.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay? Our finite connection is our spirit. Okay? Which in the spirit is all the choices and everything that we did from the time we were born to the time that we die. Okay? That is your spirit. Okay? That's the cycle it runs, and it's over when you from birth to death. That's it. That's what a ghost would be. Okay? Your soul, however, connects right back to the all when it's done. It's every potential. It's everything you could possibly ever be. And again, there's a crossover with making the spirit the soul the spirit throughout religion and throughout theology. Okay? For our purposes, what most people say when they say selling your soul to the devil is your spirit, not your soul. Okay, for our purposes and for the program that I work, that's the definition that I use. Because if you met your soul, you wouldn't know what it was. You wouldn't recognize it. It's everything you could possibly, and everything you were and could be and will be, ever. Okay, and your spirit is just the choices that you make here.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And looking at it in that way, though, it gets rid of the polarity between religions that believe in reincarnation and religions that do not. Your spirit does not get reincarnated, your soul can. So you can come back and you can not at the same time. It's one of those interesting things. Okay. But the part that essentially would go to hell or heaven
is the spirit.
Upon death is the spirit.
Yeah.
Because it's the choices. Okay. The karma you may have to pay back comes through the soul. Okay. We talk about people that are like past lives and things of that nature, and they can coexist. Okay. Some may not agree with that one. But that's that's just the way I see it. Like I said, I'm willing to debate that on things. These aren't die-hard, set in stone factual principles or anything. These are just the ways that work with the science and the math that I've come to understand. Okay, and the principles
Well,
become understandable.
Well, it's like our name suggests, the practical side of spirituality.
Right, and like I said, this is for other people's faith, to magnify their faith. You don't have to agree with all of my principles, okay? I'm just here to try to explain how these things work together. Okay, whichever one you agree with, that's fine. Anyway, getting back to, the fallen.
So talking about the fallen,
Yeah.
falling from grace, how many fell?
Roughly 133 million are the fallen angels. That was 1/3 of heaven. That tells you how many angels there are up there. Okay? And out there and still going about. Okay? The ones that fell didn't fall from one particular hierarchy. They fell from all of them. Okay? And there are dictionaries and things where you can look them up and you can find out some of the ones. These fell from the principalities, these fell from the powers, this one was a cherubim, this one was a seraphim, and so on. And not to mention the fact that, and this is one that gets a lot of misinformation about, Satan is not Lucifer. They are two separate fallen angels. Beelzebub is a fallen angel. It's separate from those two. Samael is a fallen angel. It's separate from those. Okay. Lucifer was the first angel that fell. Satan was the last.
Interesting. Okay. Satan. So tradition says that it was Michael that cast him out.
Mm-hmm. Michael defeated him.
What rank did he hold prior to his defeat?
Supposedly he held more than one. He was essentially, when you look back into it, the stories about Satan, he was one of the most powerful angels in heaven, probably the most powerful angel at his time in heaven. He was a part of multiple hierarchies, one being the seraphim, okay, which is the top of the hierarchy chain, which is also Michael, which is also Uriel, which is also Gabriel and Raphael. Okay, those are your four princes. I believe at the time Satan was probably the chief above them. Probably held a position a little higher than Seraphiel, who was the chief of the order.
Okay.
Okay. And then again, yes, Michael did defeat Satan in the Holy War.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Satan's adversary, but he is completely separate from Lucifer. Lucifer is a prince in hell right now, but he is not Satan. Satan is its own thing. Okay. And he also isn't the warden of hell. He's the top inmate. A lot of people get that wrong too.
That would seem to make sense. You wouldn't want the prisoners running the place.
Exactly. Okay. There are angels of punishment that punish souls. Those have been talked about many times in different types of literature. Okay. Essentially, the devils, the fallen angels, are the ones that feed off us. Okay, and try to take over the world. Okay, and try to break out of hell, the more powerful ones. Okay, and they have their little demonics that come out here and do things. Okay, and then people again can utilize their seals and bring them out. And let them loose rampant upon the world. Okay, as we see happen quite often.
Yeah.
And then there are light practitioners who, with the right teachings, can seal them back in, banish them back in. Okay. Unfortunately, there's not a lot that do that. There are quite a bit more. Especially nowadays, that unleash them rather than bringing them back in. Okay.
And I think a lot of that is from either misinformation or just being misguided.
Yeah, a lot of that's been lost, to be honest. A lot of that's been lost. A lot of ministers don't know how to do it. And again, you can talk about the difference between exorcism and banishment too. Exorcism, if I were, let's say I was an exorcist and I came in to do an exorcism on you, okay, I would have to use your faith, okay, to exorcise the demon out of you. Okay. Now,
okay,
that's difficult for me because I have to rely on your faith to do it. If you're possessed, that means there's something a little wavy about your faith in the first place.
Right.
Okay, not before it happened, but sense.
Certainly now.
You're in a
yes,
codependent relationship with a dark being. I mean, there's a problem. Okay. But at the same time, I can also use that and say, well, if it doesn't work, it's your fault, not mine. Okay, banishments are different. When you do a banishment, you're utilizing graceful angelic energy to banish out the dark fallen energy that's in somebody. Okay, and blast it either outside of the radius of the person, or you can seal it, send it back to hell, whatever you're going to do with it. The only thing you can't do is kill it. Because like I said, a fallen angel you don't kill.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
You can hurt them, but you can't kill them. Okay. So that's the big difference. And then if it doesn't work, yeah, I would have done something wrong. Or a lot of the times when you get into situations like that, it's not that it didn't work, but people will reconnect because they have free will. That's the sucky part of free will, is that it allows a person to do that. And it's hardest in children. Okay, because it's like losing a best friend.
Right, yes.
Or it's because you're not the center of attention anymore. Because when it was with you, you were the center of everything. And then when it's gone, everything's normal again. And you can feel not special anymore.
Wow. Wow.
And reconnect to have that feeling back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So yeah, it gets interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that would be, man,
Yes.
so many questions.
Mm-hmm.
So talking about some of that other stuff, where does Solomonic magic fit into all of this?
Solomonic magic. When people get into Solomonic magic, generally that means that you are utilizing or trying to utilize graceful angels to control fallen angels or demonics to do your bidding. Okay? I don't agree with any of that.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't work out for Solomon. I mean, essentially,
Yes. Yeah.
and I don't agree with it. Okay? The big difference is, if you're going to use graceful angelic energy, okay, it's an ask. They're allowing you to use their energy
Mm-hmm.
to do what they want, or to do what you're trying to do, whether it's help somebody or do something this, that. Okay, if you're trying to do something that is inherently dark, they're going to say no. You don't get to command that. Okay, the lie is that the fallen in their books tell you you can do that with them by utilizing these graceful angelic beings to do it. The problem is that when you do that, most of the time, the way that it was taught dilutes the power of the graceful energy and the beings that have come in. Okay, but it doesn't dilute the power of the dark ones. Okay, so it doesn't work well, because what ends up happening is that the dark connections connect much more potently than any of the graceful ones. And the first thing that a dark entity does when it makes a connection to you is it hijacks and cuts off all the good graceful ones. Okay?
Okay.
And then it pretends to be them. So you're meditating and you're going, oh, I'm meditating with Michael. It's like, yeah, I'm Michael. But it's not Michael. Okay? And it's the same thing as like using a Ouija board. Using a Ouija board is like picking up a telephone and calling a payphone in like New York City and talking to whatever answers the phone. Yeah, is this Michael? Yeah, sure. It's me. Okay? Not to mention with the open portals. We talked about portals before. Those open portals. Okay? When you end the game, it doesn't seal the portal. Things still come through it. And you never know what's going to come through it.
Oh, wow.
And that can be a major problem.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a huge issue. Okay. And a lot of hauntings are because upon death, somebody wills their spirit to connect to a dark being so they don't go. And the dark being comes in and kind of takes over that. And brings other things in with it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then begins to feed
Good.
on anything that comes to it.
So it's, yeah.
I'm not
So
saying
we're
all ghosts are evil. by any means.
No, just afraid.
There's a few of
There's
them
a lot
that
of
are-
them that are,
Right.
you know,
That aren't.
afraid
Right.
of where they're going.
Right. And some of them need help doing something before they can move on. Okay? Something that they feel they need to do before they can move on and get to where, and go to the next part of their existence. Whether that's, go to heaven or whether it's whatever religion it is, that's what they're here for. Okay?
Okay.
And some of them I think are here just to help their own, through ancestry or things of that nature. They help guide, guard people they care about.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Interesting.
But I mean, that's when you're getting into different faiths.
Right, yes, yeah.
And, I don't like to tie into any particular one. I just inherently believe that whatever faith you choose to be, you follow the rules. And you'll end up, whatever those rules say will happen, happens. Because you kind of made an oath to that
Right, okay.
when calling it your faith.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't agree with them, find one that you agree with. And work through that.
Okay.
That's kind of how, I view the thing.
Right.
In faith. Or find your own. Whether it's not organized. A lot of people need an organized religion. I understand that. Fellowship is important. And it's also important. It takes a lot of research. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. Okay, dealing with angels.
Mm-hmm.
They have their own duties. They have their own things that they want to get done. Okay? And it doesn't always mean keeping you on your path.
Right, yeah.
Sometimes if you're not doing what you're supposed to, they'll have you help them do what they're supposed to because you weren't doing your stuff anyway.
Okay.
So it's a questioning thing. You always question
Mm-hmm.
everything. But it's your faith. It's your path. You can use them to help you on your path, but don't let them use you for their path. Because if you're not on your path, why wouldn't they use you for that?
Right.
You know?
Well, that's...
They're still keeping you on a decent path. It's just not yours.
Right, and that's probably a big distinction that we want to make too is, we want to help people find and enhance their faith.
Right.
And it's not religion, it's faith.
Right, yeah. The religion is your own. That's on you. I don't want to guide you into any religion. We use Judeo-Christianity as a base here because, well, the Jewish system was the first one that created an umbrella and incorporated just about every religion on the planet under it. They were the first one to really incorporate that and say, yeah, your pantheonic people are great, everything's good, we just worship this one and have a blood contract with that one. So, Go ahead. And that's why we utilize it. But I'm not here to tell you have to be Judeo-Christian. I'm not here to tell you that you have to be, Hindu or Buddhist or anything else. Or some of the Native American religions or shamanics it doesn't matter. Okay? The energy's all the same. It all is utilized the same way. The problem is that it is crossover. I have never been a part of a banishment, a cleansing, exorcism, whatever you want to call it, that utilized a god to get rid of a demonic that worked. Never seen it happen. It's never happened. Things have gotten a little better for a while, but then it always comes back. And it's mainly because when you go back to even, when they used to talk about these things together and have discussions and debates instead of just arguing, my way's better, your way's not, kind of thing. The consensus was that most of the gods in the old pantheonic religions were at the level of an archangel. Okay, and I know everybody big on archangels, but when you look at the hierarchy of the angels, it's the second to the lowest of the hierarchy. The top, it's seraphim, cherubim, thrones, dominations, virtues, powers, principalities, archangels, and angels. Okay, and I throw nature spirits under that. For myself, I think they're an order of angels. They're just at the lowest level. And they're more connected to making sure all the planet and everything works. But when you look at that, that's relatively low energy. So in order for them to work, they would have to come up against a fallen that was either part of the archangel angel or below.
Okay.
But their potency is not going to be, isn't enough to deal with anything above that in the hierarchy.
Wow. Okay.
You know, and I think that's why most of the time it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're great to get rid of, like I said, like devils and demons, the demons. But
Right. Yes.
the source, the devil source that they were connected to, no. They can't hold a candle to most of those, and that's the problem.
Right.
Because
Okay.
they'll send more back in.
Mm-hmm.
So it might work for a couple of weeks, a couple of days, depending on what the source is,
Right.
before the stuff comes back. And they're very deceptive. You know, they'll come in the form of children. They do all sorts of things to make you feel like, oh no, this is a good one. I was at one where we had the spirit of a little girl. I walked in and said, oh, there's the spirit of this little girl. She's good. She comes in and we have this dark presence that's upstairs, that stays upstairs. And then they told me that when the little girl comes out around, the dark presence goes away, so she actually protects them from it. And I'm like, that's not possible. So the problem that you're having is the little girl. If this dark force is afraid of this little girl, she's either an angel, which an angel wouldn't do this,
Right.
or she's the actual source and the problem. And she's using it to make her connections to you more powerful. And we figured out who it was, and we did the banishment and got rid of it. But they had that entire family snowed. That this was a good, awesome, great spirit of a little child helping their daughter.
That's
And
crazy.
it wasn't.
Yeah.
That was the actual problem.
Okay. Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with deception. You're dealing with things that have been around longer than any of us have, are smarter than we are, know the Bible better than we do, know all of the information that I'm talking about better than I do. So,
Yeah.
these are the ones that brought it down in the first place and taught it to man, essentially.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
A lot of
when you
this,
look at
yeah,
Judaism-
it's the Watchers. Yeah.
Yeah, some of the Watchers brought these down, shared it with us, and again, because it's time, time is cyclical,
Mm-hmm.
can't take it back.
Right.
You can't undo it. And again, if time travel was possible, why wouldn't that have happened? Okay, we're going to wipe that out. We're just going to start from this spot over again and make sure it doesn't happen again.
Right.
And
Yes.
that's not what happened. Okay? So, when these cycles occur, again, we'll go back to Judaism, the books of Enoch. So Enoch was lifted up because all these Nephilim were going around killing everybody. They were eating them,
Yeah.
destroying everything. And the prayers reached essentially Raphael and Gabriel, and went to the Ancient of Days and said, hey, you let us do something about this? And he said, okay. And brought Enoch up and said, okay, here's what we're going to do. And then, that the story unfolds. But again, that's the nature of it. They've been around for a long time. And they know how these things work.
Yeah.
Okay, but there are certain rules they have to follow. There are certain rules the graceful have to follow and the fallen have to follow. Okay, and the only problem is us.
Right.
Because we've got that stupid free will that allows us to be played. Okay, and that's the biggest issue that we have.
Unfortunately, yes, and it makes us very susceptible to deception.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And just remember, all we are is we're just a tool for a drug. We're the paraphernalia.
Yeah.
We're how they smoke it, whatever you want to call it. We're the needle.
Okay.
We're not the drug. We're the needle for them to get it.
Right.
So they need us for that, and that's the only reason that they even care about us.
Okay. Okay.
Because again, in other stories, if we're going back to Judeo-Christianity, they hated us in the first place, and that's why some of them were cast out. So. But again, we could go on talking about angels forever, so hopefully that was okay, and we can get into more depth in different areas, like the angelic hierarchies and what they mean and how to work those kind of things, and which is a part of what they all do.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Well, I think we're going to wrap it up here then.
Okay.
All
Wonderful.
right. Well, thanks for tuning in. And if you have any questions, inquiries, any comments or anything, feel free to contact us. And do remember to like and subscribe. Thank you.
Mhm.